Exactly.
Just in case. All right, you know what? We're live now.
Oh,
So, hello everybody. We're back again with the second episode. Our guests here tonight are Gary King, prominent crop circle researcher. Let me do a little intro for you there, Gare. Over 20 years of research in the crop circle phenomenon. He's walked in over 900 different crop circles throughout the England area, the Wiltshire area. I might have butchered the pronunciation there again, but he's very well educated in crop circles. And the documentary that we're going to be covering, or so not the documentary, the film we're going to be covering tonight is a fan favorite for myself and Lee Lustig.
I thought Signs was a documentary. I don't.
It is.
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's how you interpret it, I guess. No, it's definitely not a documentary, but what we do on our show, Brandon and I, and Brandon's got his own show, Expanding Reality. This show is called Esoteric Review, and what we like to do is review a really cool film that has come out in the past or recently, or TV show or book, and we discuss the fiction, but the fiction in these stories is often represented in reality. Sometimes these things actually manifest, and today we are discussing the film by M. Night Shyamalan, Signs. So we all had a watch of it before jumping on this podcast, and I've got some videos and stuff to illustrate the things that we're talking about, but let's start off by introducing yourself, Lee. Lee has done voiceover for many documentaries now that I've produced with him, and he's a fantastic writer. He works in film and television. He's an excellent editor himself. He's doing a really cool project, a documentary that probably I can't talk about right now because it might be under NDA. Yeah, he's just got a golden voice. He's an amazing friend of mine, and he's also self-deprecating. So I don't know how much he's going to take those compliments.
Thank you for introducing me, so I didn't have to. Like, I was really worried I was going to have to, but you didn't make me, so I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome, man.
And you made me sound way better than I would have, so thank you.
There's the deprecation right there, my man.
Welcome, Lee. Gary, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. I was a lawyer. I used to run a private investigation agency in London as well. And then in 1997, I met up with a very, very, I'd say, enigmatic and eccentric guy who was very knowledgeable about psychedelics, peyote. I was exploring. I'd read Carlos Castaneda and I'd read a bunch of books about psychedelics, and I was kind of keen to try some peyote out. And then I met up with this guy coincidentally. I was living in Cardiff, and he was also over from the States to visit the crop circle. So I got him to take me along one day. And I walked into a crop circle there in July 97, and I've never left really. 25 years later, here I am. And I've pretty much spent the last 25 years trying to figure out what they all mean.
That is awesome.
So cool. Well, cool.
Can you get peyote now, or is that hard to find?
Yeah, it's all around Mexico.
I live in Mexico,
yes. Cactus, right? You can grow it in your front yard. Yeah.
It's easy to find?
I think so,
you get the shit at Home Depot. I think it's just the San Juan cactus.
Hey, that's...
online.
Lophophora williamsi is the Latin name for it. So you could just walk into a shop and get Lophophora williamsi, and they sell it.
Yeah. Right. That's the one psychedelic I haven't done. I mean, not the one. I'm sure there's others, but that's the one big one I haven't done. But
I think the biggest one is Ibogaine, the African one. I think
I'm again.
Yeah, the liquid.
No, it's a branch. It's like they shave off.
Do you make a tea out of it, or how do you
just chew on it?
Oh, you just chew the. Wow.
Yeah.
I'd rather chew on some wood than drink some warm concoction. I think.
The effects of ibogaine last for like 16 to 36 hours, something like that. It's insane. It's an insane long trip, but it's been used forever to get people off opioid addictions and stuff like that.
And
It's
it really
crazy.
works.
Yeah.
I think I've
Right.
actually seen like some reality TV show where they take people that are struggling with addiction to some island and they feed them that stuff and they're like, okay, I'm done.
Yep.
But
Yeah, that's pretty much how it is.
Incredible.
Yeah.
ayahuasca, I think, does the same thing too. And Gary, you've tried that out. So have you,
6
Brandon?
weeks, 6 weeks ago here, yeah, I moved into this house, and the day before I moved in, I had a shaman come down, and me and a friend did a whole night session on ayahuasca, and that was pretty intense.
Hell yeah, Gary. Hell yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Congrats on the
jealous.
new house, man. Congrats on the new place. It looks great.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Gary's so used to drinking his tea. He had 5 cups of ayahuasca tea.
5 big cups.
And the
God,
shaman
and-
never seen that before.
That's
Yeah, I
a lot,
smoked
right?
It was pretty. Yeah, the guy afterwards, he's been doing it 13 years, and he said, and I smoked the DMT as well, like 3 big hits on a pipe during the session as well, and he said, yeah, you can take it, man.
You need that much to get anything out of it, right?
How do you say Gary goes hard in Spanish, man? That's amazing. Great job, dude. Damn.
Yeah.
I think
Built
it would
the
be
tolerance.
pronounced Heri. I don't know. Anyway,
Okay.
No, that's
okay,
just hairy.
Yeah.
They don't pronounce G or
That's
G
how you say
or like-
Bigfoot. And no,
Nah, yeah. It's a different type of Harry. A Henderson, I think. So let's get into this film.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off with the first sort of thing that catches one's mind or their eyes, their ears, everything, is the sort of auditory experience that you go through when the opening credits are playing. And this film is pretty badass in the way that it stokes your imagination through music, through your auditory senses. And it's a film that's about many, many different things. It's definitely about a family, a simple farm family, and they're going through some troubles of their own. They've just lost, Mel Gibson's character, Reverend, it'll come to me later, has lost his wife. Graham Hess, yeah. And he's just trying to keep the family together. He's trying to make sure that everybody's safe, everybody's happy. And apparently it's not a good time for them, because at this point in time, they're kind of going through a supernatural moment for the entire planet, and that is a invasion. But we could see Reverend Graham Hess. He's walked into a crop circle, and the crop circles are very lightly touched on in this film. And we've brought Gary here, who's been, firsthand exposed to so many crop circles throughout his life. And I think it's really important for us to first illustrate some key intro themes to ufology when it comes to crop circles. And in this film, what's interesting is M. Night Shyamalan has obviously done a bit of research on ufology. He's dedicated many different points, which we'll go over in this episode on the film. He dedicates so many points in the ufology field that are real, that are representative, and the crop circles are just one of those things. So, Gary, if you don't mind, can you kind of just tell us some things that stood out for you when they started talking about the crop circles in this film?
The first thing that hit me was the child who said God made it. Because that's the symbol of a circle. Ancient. If you go back in ancient history, the circle is the symbol of God. It's the symbol of all-encompassing creation. It's got this finite diameter and its relationship to infinity. and it gives us a chance to consider our finite lives and whether or not we have an infinite soul, and whether that is connected to the creator in some way. So, you know, this is one of the things about crop circles, is that a circle itself is seen as a very symbolic and deeply philosophical thing. We've forgotten about that sort of stuff in recent times, but go back in history and it was pretty deep. So that was the first thing that struck me when she said God made it. And the other thing that struck me straight away was the fact that there haven't been that many. That crop circle is in maize, it's in corn, right? And there have been crop circles in corn, and the corn lasts later. It's not harvested until later in the season, so you can get corn circles in September. So they can be the last ones of the season. And the thing is, that image you just brought up with Mel Gibson walking into it, the one thing about, there's a couple of things about corn circles. That one, look at the height of it. It's above his head, okay? And there are no, unlike other crop circles, there are no tractor lines. It's just a field of corn. And so you have to obtain an aerial shot of the corn circle, and then look for a landmark like a tree, or if there's a row of trees on the road at the side of the field, you have to count how many trees, you know, up on the right there are, and then walk into the field from there, sort of aim yourself at it. And after about 100 or 200 yards, you're just in the Amazon, and you're just thinking, oh shit, man, am I gonna hit this crop circle? Because it's just above your head and you've got no reference whatsoever. And then when it opens out into the crop circle, and you've got this huge area, and I did a documentary with the Norwegian filmmaker, and there's some great examples in his footage of these, like, they made these, like, there were these, like, some of the, so it was all laid down without being broken. And then there were these, like, little houses weaved out of the corn that you could sit in, like a kind of dome inside the corn circle. So they're quite special when they happen in maize. Yeah.
Amazing.
So let's discuss the complexities of crop circles, and just how you have found many of them in multiple different mediums. Let's say, you know, you just spoke about maize, corn, which is very thick, the stalks of it.
Very thick.
Obviously, the easiest one to manipulate would be hay, traditional hay. But then you also see it in soy. You see it in what's the flowered
like canola.
one? Canola. And canola is also a very thick-stemmed plant. It's like celery, you've said to me in the past, Gary. So, you know, and then on top of that, this appears to be a very flat field. And from your experience, and in the documentary I made with you, there's a formation that you go and examine when it first appears that it pops up in the middle of, first of all, it appears on a hill. So it's on an inclination. That adds an extra difficulty point to building this with such perfection, and to make it look symmetrical from the sky. And that was canola on a hill, a 3D cube floating in the middle of a circle. When you walked into that, what did you notice?
The first thing you notice is the lack of damage, because when you walk into a canola field, you know, again, the crop is quite high compared to wheat. There are different breeds of wheat, so some of it can be quite low, and then other breeds can be higher. But with canola, it's always high. It's at least shoulder height. And when you walk into it, by the time you get to the crop circle, you are just yellow, because all the pollen from the flowers has come off, and you've broken all the leaves. They're very, very delicate little petals on the yellow flowers. So when you walk into it, and then you just see this whole bed of flowers which are undamaged, that's the first indication that you think, well, look, you know, if I've damaged the crop just by walking down this line and brushing against it, how on earth did somebody bend these things over without breaking them and not damage the flowers? You see them often, you know, by the time you get to them in the morning, the heads have grown back up to the sun with phototropism, so they're all perked up nice and nice and beautifully.
Just ready for the day.
That's weird.
And I've got, there's a great example. I did a thing with the History Channel, Ancient Aliens, some years ago, and they got the three guys who claimed to be the best circle makers. You know, this John Lundberg and I forget the other two guys' names. It'll come to me in a minute. Irving, Rob Irving, and then this other guy. These three guys go around that they made the Nvidia crop circle in California, and openly they admit it took them 2 weeks and all that to make the Nvidia one, again on a flat field. So anyway, Ancient Aliens hired these guys to go and make a recreation of a crop circle that had appeared back in early 2000 at Golden Ball Hill. And so they said, you know, can you make this? And they went out and made it, and they stomped around, and they did it in 4 hours in daylight, as they always do. And you can see there's really good close-ups in the footage. It's available on YouTube. As they're pushing this crop down with these boards and then lifting their foot up and moving forward, they're scraping all the stems and stripping all of the outer green sort of bark, if you like, you know, the outer skin of the rape off of it, and then crushing it and breaking it. And all the flowers, it just looks a mess. And then when you look at the two when they finish it and you look at it from above, about 200 feet from above in a drone, you go, oh, that's a crop circle, right? But when you look at it on the ground and compare it to the Golden Ball Hill one, which was just a sea of yellow flowers that were undamaged, there's no comparison. That's the difference.
You know, and they point this out in the movie as well. They point out the fact that the crops are not broken.
Right, they're not broken.
They're totally
do,
fine.
yeah.
But
That's
earlier
probably
on, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Brandon.
Well, I was just going to say earlier on, they were trying to blame it on like a Doug and Dave Turley, something like that.
Yeah.
Who were, you know, the town.
Lionel
folks.
Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers.
Lionel Pritchard and the Wolfington brothers. Now,
Yeah, it's brilliant.
But you know,
which one of these crop circles was it that you were talking about there, Gare?
It's so on the left-hand side, second one down.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah.
So they tried to recreate this. That obvious. Yeah, you could see the yellow flowers all over. So
all over.
And that's the thing. Like when this is the one that you walked into, right? The cube.
One. Yeah. That's the one.
So look at this. You know, this is an incredible photo because you've got a 3D object in the middle of this geometric pattern. It looks symmetrical from above, and when Gary's walking around this, you literally don't see any damage to the plant. Like it's almost as if the plant's bent over at will.
All right, can I ask Gary a question?
Yeah.
Because I want to know what you think. Because one of the creepiest things about the movie Signs is that they don't really explain how the crop circles are made ever. It's just not even really gone into. What do you think are the most prominent theories of how this is actually done? Is it sound? Is it what have you found?
Well, there are from a scientific point of view, the analysis that's been done on multiple crop circles, which is available on a website called BLT Research. It was Burke, Levengood, and Talbot. Levengood was the biophysicist who examined all the crop. Nancy Talbot was the researcher who conscripted a bunch of people to go out and take crop and soil samples and send them to him. I can't remember exactly what Burke's role was. Anyway, he found that there were microwaves, electricity, and magnetism. So the magnetism was predominantly discovered in the soil samples. There were these spherical balls of iron that were kind of congealed together. It's also been found in the crop. And so iron is the most abundant element in the universe. There is always, if you analyze any soil anywhere on the planet, you will always find iron in the soil. But what we found with the control samples taken outside the crop circle compared to inside the crop circle was that there was significantly more iron in the soil inside the crop circle, which suggests that there was some form of magnetism which maybe sucked the iron out of the atmosphere and the earth, in the air that was present in the air, the microparticles, and pulled it down into the ground.
Now, is that something we can do with some type of technology that we have? I mean, can someone make that argument?
Well, one thing I'll jump in here, Doug and Dave Doug Chorley and is it Dave Bauer? They're
Yeah.
the ones that famously said they made all of the crop circles in the 70s leading up to the 90s, because really in 1991 it all came to a head. The complexity of the circles was just advancing at an astounding rate. People were flocking to England to see them every summer at this point. Like, it was becoming a huge phenomenon. And these guys just hit the scene and said, all right, well, we're the ones that made them all, you know? There's no mystery here.
Gary, how's Darcy's accent? Rate that
It's
accent.
terrible. It's absolutely terrible, but he's making a good effort.
Rubbish.
That's the other point, isn't it? Because they brought up in the movie about, what was the name? Wolfendale, the guys that
The Wolfington.
Wolfingtons,
Brothers.
and they said that the sheriff, she said that they're certainly not intelligent enough to do this, and that's what we found with Doug Bauer and Dave Chorley. They had to be separated. They had to be together when they gave their interviews, because if they were separated, they gave completely different answers and versions, and they had to be helped with things like what pi r squared meant, and one of them didn't know what it was. It wasn't one of those two. There was another guy, Julian Richardson, who claims he makes crop circles. He had to be helped with what radius meant.
Wow.
So
They were
some of
just
them are
stupid farm boys.
And
Yeah.
in my mind, this was a nod to it in the movie. This was a nod to the actual Doug and Dave,
Yeah.
because you see that it's two people that do it. They found that they're not intelligent enough. Just like Gary said, they couldn't even do simple geometry. And it's like the M. Night Shyamalan is doing a nod to that actual situation in real life, saying that, yes, that's a part of it, but it's not what's happening here.
Yeah, definitely.
This is the exact scene where they're
Yeah, she said
discussing
that.
it. She says, yeah, look how perfectly they, and he says, oh, well, it definitely wasn't done by hand. And you could see that the funny thing is, if you know anything, have done a little bit of crop circle research, she says, look, and they're not damaged at all. And those breaks you can see there, that's clear damage. When you look at the documentary that Gary and I made, there's so many crops where they're bent at the nodes of the plant, as if they've just been steamed down and exerted some kind of different kind of force, but these are clearly broken. But the fact that M. Night added that feature, added that comment on the crops, means he's done his research. He actually knew about the phenomenon somewhat before he incorporated this into the script. He writes all of.
I mean, I sure hope writers are doing research about stuff they're writing. I mean, he better have. But I love M. Night Shyamalan. I mean, he's one of my favorite filmmakers. I'm not saying I think all of his movies were executed in the best way possible, but he's one of those guys that actually tries to come up with a new, interesting concept with every film he makes, and I really respect that about him. But and I love Signs. Like, it's I've seen it. I remember seeing it at least 3 times in theaters. And I could sit here and talk about why I love it or why it's a great film, but the best thing about it is that it doesn't feel like he just went out to make a movie just because he had an interest in aliens, because that would be lame. That would be like indulgent. Instead, it's more about a guy struggling with his faith and the loss of his wife, and how he gets his faith back really has nothing to do with the aliens. And I think that's why it is a good film. It's because it's not like directly about the aliens, like that isn't the main conflict that he's going through. And it did a lot for introducing people to aliens. I mean, I think it was a huge movie at the time. We hadn't really seen a good alien blockbuster in a while. And so I think it really did introduce a lot of people to crop circles and, maybe just like UFOs in general. But after years of, you and me doing research and films into ufology, I think aside from the crop circles, like if you dissect like the aliens themselves in this movie, I don't think it's the greatest like ufology example. I mean,
No,
They're
you know,
fragile,
clearly,
man.
clearly
They're easy
not.
to defeat. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're easy
Yeah,
to defeat. It's more about like, you know,
the struggle.
the ufology to me is like, you know, there's nothing deep or spiritual about the aliens in this movie. It's a spiritual movie, but you know, like when ufology is, there's a lot of spirituality in that too. And we've heard, you know, we've heard stories of aliens monitoring Earth and disarming nukes. And in this movie, they seem a little stupid and primitive. I mean, they can't open wooden doors.
They
So,
seem,
like,
yeah, they
it
seem
doesn't
more
quite
like
line up with.
they seem demonic. Like I
Maybe,
think
yeah.
it's if they have
Trickster.
like a faith sort of angle that they're playing, and M. Night puts a lot of faith sort of into his films. Sixth Sense, Unbreakable. You know, he has that character has no faith in himself, and then he becomes a hero. You know, once he realizes what his true purpose is. Lady in the Water, it's like about a community that lives at this apartment, and there's like, you know, everybody has these unique features to themselves. And every character in that film, Lady in the Water, has to go through sort of this like faith moment to realize what their purpose is. And this one dumb guy that has a massive arm because he just works out one arm realizes he has to threaten the wolf monster or something with like a pole and his arm at the end. Like that was his whole purpose, you know, just to work out that arm. And it's kind of goofy, but
Yeah, everybody meeting their destiny and
Yeah, it's
in a
serendipity.
yeah.
pre-planned way. Yeah,
And this film is rife with it. But
it's
I
true.
will
It's a good point. I
add,
never thought of that.
I will add to, you know, when not Bo, what's the son's name?
Morgan.
Morgan. When Morgan says, "I think God did it," right? I will just mention great author Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I
Hell
think
yeah.
that's a really good point that people should understand. Too, with ufology, a lot of aspects of the ufology phenomenon look like magic. And if you go to these conferences where people speak, they basically start magic talking to the crowd. And those are actually some of the more famous and popular people that speak in ufology because people like to hear magic. They don't like to hear like technology and logic and mathematics and, you know, these types of possibilities. So you always get these snake oil salesmen that come to these types of conferences and start, you know, professing their magical beliefs, and people fall for it. They always have in ufology. And I think one hit on this movie is that it does touch on a lot of things that are real in ufology. And we'll get into some of those later. We'll even talk about the aliens a bit more. I have a whole segment about that. But the one major hit against it is that almost throughout the film, the aliens are not taken seriously by any single character except for, you know, Reverend Hess and his family at the end when they're cornered by the aliens. You know, they start hearing the noises through the baby monitor. They're not convinced. They see sightings of like a bee, like the Reverend sees the thing on the barn house, you know, across from him.
No, I mean the son is definitely the smartest the character in the movie.
Yeah.
He immediately. I mean, that's the one thing I did like that was realistic. He gets a book in a bookstore about aliens. Now that I related to, I was like, yeah, because there was a time where that is how you found out about this stuff. Like you had to go get a book in a bookstore, right?
100%.
And they only had one in that town, and they only got it by accident.
I liked that aspect of it for sure.
Oh yeah, there's the faith again.
Exactly where it was in the bookshelf.
Yeah, third
to
shelf over. Yeah, right up.
Incredible,
Yeah, knew exactly.
That's how
Yeah, it was. Actually, the quote was, "It was a mistake, sent here by mistake, and we kept it for we kept it for the city people. It's
Yeah.
like
Right.
the city people. Why the city people are the only ones that believe in aliens?
But that's what's interesting, right? Because they're contacted way more out in rural areas. You know, that's what most of the stories that you hear. So it's actually kind of juxtaposition to the real reality and ufology.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
Definitely.
even when they go to town, one of my favorite scenes is this one where this guy's watching a TV and he's like, "They're trying to sell sodas.
Yeah.
I've seen 12 commercials. 13. I've seen 13 now.
It's
They're trying to
yeah.
sell." And it's like you see this very same phenomenon where people believe it's just a government psyop, even today.
Well,
You know, you look at what's happening with Disclosure with Luis Elizondo and To the Stars Academy, and so many people are just, there's this massive rift right now because so many people think it's just a massive psyop. And what if it is partly a psyop, but it's still the best disclosure you're going to get, you know, from the government?
You know, another nod from the commercials as well is that, you know, never let a good catastrophe go to waste, right? So of course the news station would be selling whatever the hell they could, and they probably jacked the prices up to advertisers because there were so many viewers. It was viewed on such a large scale. So of course they're going to capitalize on that, and that's a funny nod to kind of like the way that capitalism influences kind of the information that you receive. So
yeah,
100%.
And then it's used then as an excuse to discredit the actual facts of the situation itself. Isn't it? Oh, well, they're just making money, right? They're selling books, videos, and the DVDs coming out. And,
absolutely. Brilliant.
So another sort of interesting aspect that happens near the starting of the film is, I thought I'd just add this. This is the segment where Cherry, who's the town police officer, is saying, "Hey, look, I couldn't come over here quick enough because you guys obviously got shaken up last night about, you know, possibly the Wolfington brothers messing up your farm land and showing these crop circles, making these crop circles appear because of old Miss Thornton spitting on the skateboards." I thought that this segment was so interesting and funny to happen near the beginning of the film because it just sets up more to the viewer that we're in a rural area. You know, we're in a place where we have fields of corn and then old ladies that get tripped by somebody going by them on a skateboard on the sidewalk take revenge by going into the local skateboard shop and hawking loogies. She's like, she sprayed the whole store, and good golly me, I think she had a cold because that was the most disgusting thing I've ever seen.
Or how about when they're talking about the alien on their roof and she thinks it was like some woman that came in to buy cigarettes and got angry?
Yeah, it was like this feminist movement right there in the middle. It's like she was defending, like, of course, well, it could have been a girl, you know, they never caught that one girl. You know?
Well, also, no, she figured,
what a weird, what a hard flex, you know?
But she figured like this town is so small that like, oh, I must know who this was, you know? Like she just assumed this must be someone I know. Like this cannot be an alien. Kind of goes to what you were saying.
But there is a point from I was born in London, right? I grew up in London. I moved to Cardiff and then started going to Wiltshire in 1997. Farmers and people who live in rural communities are different.
Yeah.
They really are.
I live in a town of 400 people. Yeah, I can vouch for this. Yeah,
and farmers themselves, they're just different. They just don't see the world the same way as everybody else. Right? They look at, I'm going to get like 40 harvests in my lifetime, and my dad had that, and my grandfather had that, and my son's going to have that, and that's kind of all they focus on. They're out in their tractors, and when you try to reason with them, like, look, you've got this thing in your field, and we'd like to set up. There's just no reasoning with them. I had a disagreement with Linda Moulton Howe some years ago. There was a fantastic crop circle in 2016. And this woman who owned the farm, she was bombarded for a week with everybody hassling her. And then Linda Moulton Howe, this American accent, picks up the phone and reads, "Hi, I'm Linda Moulton Howe." And the woman just put the phone down. And Linda rang me and said, "This woman's rude." She put the phone down. I said, "You just don't understand farmers.
Yeah.
You can't." you know. So there is a difference to get used to.
They have their own bubble of reality, and they are in tunnel vision. They basically
Yeah.
just see the world the way that they perceive it, and that's why this film works so well, is because you see, as a outsider looking into this world, you're basically going, oh my God, this is an alien invasion right from the very beginning of the film. And these stupid farm folk don't know what they're about to get into, right? Like, you're basically, oh God, are they going to figure this out? Are they going to figure this out? So it's,
Yeah, well, lucky for them, the aliens were even stupider, so it
Yeah,
worked.
that's fair. You know, one thing though that is interesting about it is it's a psychology. It's not even just that they're different because of whatever. It's a psychology. There's nobody coming to save you out here. So there's a very much, we only call the cops after the fact if they want to come pick them up. You know, there's no call the cops to avoid anything. We handle our own business. There's been some instances out here. My neighbors and I kind of all come to the four corner there, and we have a little conversation, and it's just different out here, man. So it is a psychology. So they're ready to survive. You know, these folks, that's what they do. They're mentally geared for them.
I've had several farmers walk into me while I'm sitting in a crop circle with a shotgun under their arm.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah.
That's the way they think. You know, you're in my land, on my land. I've got the gun.
They have no guns and signs. Like, where are their firearms the whole movie?
Yeah.
Yeah. The only person that probably survived down in town was this guy, you know, the recruiter for the army.
You love this guy. This is like you in 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
5 years.
It's
5
me.
years.
I do fucking love
Darcy.
this guy. He's and the interesting thing is the whole town is completely clueless, right? Like, they all have their own perception of what's going on. One guy thinks it's a psyop. This guy just goes, I've seen this before. I know what this is. It's called probing.
Probing. It's like a
reconnaissance. It's a reconnaissance, yeah. And then, like, Meryl's like, for what? And he's like, for the rest of them.
You got a pamphlet I can look at or something?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, bathroom. I'm in the wrong place. You know, what's interesting too is that you know, whenever they broke down a little bit later on how it correlates to this is it's a military tactic, right? So the guy said, the little boy said that there's two options, that we either defeat them and they leave and come back with more, or they take over and kill us all. So it's like this. Those are the only two options, right? So which is pretty dismal, you know.
And the other interesting thing to that is that this actually has manifested in reality. The only real knowledge, you know, like the only wheelhouse in the world that has all the data on the ufology for themselves is the military. The military knows exactly what's buzzing around our planet, you know, and the other intelligence agencies that are linked to the military industrial complex. So that's kind of represented in this small scene where all the civilians are like, duh, what do we do? And this guy's like probably got a machine gun at his house. He's got like his doors boarded up and his windows boarded up a few days before everything goes down. Like, this guy knows what's up. And that is represented in real life. The world is like that. The military knows what's up in this phenomenon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wilshire
looks
is
like Tim Robbins.
Yeah, he does right there.
He does
Yeah.
look like Tim Robbins, doesn't he? Yeah.
My wife, we were
It looks
watching
like-
this last night. She's like, there's something wrong with his lips. And I'm like, I think that's
Called acting.
Yeah, it's just part of the scene that this character has crazy lips when he talks.
It's called chewing on the scenery. No.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He
stiff
looks
upper lip.
Yeah, he looks like if Tim Robbins and Henry Rollins had a baby.
Wow. That is an incredible. Yeah.
Spot on, right?
No, I see
Yep.
that.
Cool.
So let's
You're
talk
good at
about
lookalikes.
Thanks,
I
man.
want to go back just on one thing you said there, where the sheriff had come over and said, "I'm sorry, I was late. I was over at Mrs. whatever her name is." That one thing a lot of people don't realise about the crop circles is that you don't just get one week and then one another. We have 5 one night, 3 the next night, 7 one night. It's not just one that's isolated. They come down in multiple numbers.
Good
A
point.
lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
What do you think about the crop circle in signs? I mean, it's kind of
pretty
lame
basic. Pretty
compared
basic.
to like stuff I've seen, right?
Well, The interesting thing about those, we call them pictograms. They kind of like, when the crop circles, the evolution of the crop circle started off with just simple circles, one circle, and that went on for several years. It was like almost like they were trying to catch somebody's attention. You know, a friend of mine flew over southern England in a helicopter, and there were just hundreds of circles of different sizes. He said it's like somebody just flicked a paintbrush and splattered all these circles everywhere randomly. But when people started to pay attention, the first person was Colin Andrews, the electrician from down in Hampshire. And then he got involved with Pat Delgado and Busty Taylor. They were the original kind of guys that brought it to the attention of the world. Then as people started to take notice, they began to evolve. Then we got 2 circles. Then we got 3. It was almost like they were counting or teaching us to count. Do you remember 1, 2, 3? Then the pictograms came along, and people thought, well, what are these? Interestingly, the big pictogram that came down in Eastfield in 1990, I think 91, sorry, the one that appeared on the Led Zeppelin album cover, that's very similar to the signs. That one you're bringing up there is the NVIDIA one that these guys made for the crops.
Oh yeah, that's
NVIDIA.
a chip. And
That's
you
a
know
chip.
how long did it take them to make that? We've talked about
2 weeks.
2 weeks, and how many people?
I'm not sure in total, but you can watch the video on YouTube, and there's a bunch of guys out in the field.
Gary, what do you think about the notion in the movie Signs that the crop circles are like navigational indicators for them to like? What do you?
I mean, people have said that, but the point I was going to make about the pictograms, Lee, is that I've got some graphics I could show to you, but it's the hidden geometry in the pictograms.
Right.
There circles in the pictograms are proportioned. So far right at the top there. No, go back. That one, yeah, the third one in now. You know, it's at the far right again. Far right, top row. That's the Eastfield pictogram. That's the one that brought it to the attention of the world. Really, when that happened, similar to the Signs thing. Look.
Well, that does look like the one from Signs. Yeah.
Yeah,
that kind of is.
Yeah.
And
I think he would have taken it from that. Yeah.
It's like a nod, you know.
I've got a wonderful photograph. There's a little lane. That field is Eastfield. That's the most famous field for crop circles. It's on a farm owned by Tim Carson. And there's a road that runs in the middle of that field, and then Milk Hill and a field to the right of that. And I've got a wonderful photograph. When that crop circle appeared, people came from all over the world and completely blocked all the roads with cars. And they were standing on the rooftops of the cars to look down into the field to see that. People really thought, that's it, aliens are here.
Yeah.
The police were just walking up and handing out tickets to people.
Look at the complexity of some of these. And I want you to just talk about, you know, the event that you were exposed to on, what was it, July 7th, 2007. You know, you saw a massive crop circle just appear within a few hours. There was no people to account for doing it. There was a flash of light in the middle of the night. You know, basically something that seemed, you know, paranormal to most people. And that is representative of a lot of these super complex formations that have shown up over the years. Some of these incredibly complex crop circles show up in the cover of night with no person or people, a team of people, to account for doing it, in pitch black with no headlamps. They haven't damaged the crops. The crops are still growing the next day and, you know, being subjected to phototropism, growing back up to the sunlight as the sun rises. You know, all of these different aspects that people just don't even look into when they think about the crop circle phenomenon. They think, oh, it's all just been done by Doug and Dave. So can you talk a bit about that, Gary? And how...
It's a strange thing to me, because you think you'd think if you lay out. I mean, when I give presentations at conferences and I lay out that case that you've just described, I say, okay, look, here we've got a team of guys who made one. This team took 23 hours and they made this very small crop circle. And when we look at the ground, it's smashed up and it's damaged and so on. Then we got this other team. They took 40 guys, took 7 days. They used a tractor to cut out the crop and so on and so on. And then we got these examples, hundreds and thousands of them, which appear in darkness. And believe me, if you walk out into the fields in Wiltshire in the middle of the night, there are no street lights. It is dark. If I walked down those tram lines, the tractor lines are 25 meters apart, 75 feet. If I walk down one of them and you walk down another one, and I was yelling at you, right, go left and make a triangle over there, you just think this is fucking ridiculous, man.
Yeah.
And then you add on the extras of not damaging the crop, doing it on uneven ground, doing it in the pouring rain in a huge storm, and it's completely done by daylight, and you've got out of the field, you've packed your tools in the car, and you've gone back home for breakfast. And you add on logistics, like for example, in the prolific days when we get like 150 a year and stuff like this, and multiple at night, we think, okay, people would tell us that 20 teams are coming over from Spain and France and Germany, and I go, okay, where do they stay? Who funds them? We know a lot of the guest house owners in the area, right? We'd say, have you got any guys staying there like all summer? And are they coming home with muddy boots at 4 a.m. and sneaking off? And how do they survey the ground? And you just add these things on and it gets more and more ridiculous to me. However, when you present this to people, they kind of go glazed over in the eyes. Like you said earlier, people want a bit of magic. They don't want the maths. They don't want the reality. It's a very strange, and that's why I keep going back to the fact that the crop circles are wonderful. They're great and beautiful. But what they do is they tell us more about us. They tell us that, if you go out there and you say, look, we've got these things appearing in the fields, there's no way they could be made because of the time frame. And, I've argued once as a former lawyer, if I was defending a guy who claimed he'd done something, made a crop circle, like the guys who claim they made the 777 one in front of me, I would say, okay, then, so what you've done is you've made one circle every 2 minutes because it was completed in 300 minutes. Prove it. I would call on the prosecution to prove that could be done in order to convict my client of criminal damage of the farmer's field, because it's impossible to do. So it's a strange one.
Gary, I've seen documentaries like, Thrive and stuff that like says that the crop circles have sacred geometry and they're trying to communicate it to us because it might have free energy. I don't know what. Do you think that's what they are? Are they trying to communicate the geometry for some reason, or is it?
Well, two points there. Geometry is the primary language of communication, of form, and it seems that our ancestors, because hidden within Stonehenge and the pyramid at Giza, and they've been excavated because Bolsonaro is burning down the Amazon. They're finding these squared circles in the Amazon, which are thousands and thousands of years old. So there seems to be a connection to our ancestors and a knowledge that our ancestors had and practiced very heavily around the world to build these monuments, which are still a mystery, which are contained within the crop circles. And so it's not geometry like you learnt at school, like you've mentioned, sacred geometry. There's this element. The reason it's called sacred is because our consciousness, our minds are wired to recognize harmonious proportions. That's why the Gothic builders built churches with 2-to-1 and 3-to-1 and 4-to-1 ratios, because it's basically music made visible. We just think it's beautiful. It speaks to our intuition. Wow. Speaks to the way that we recognize it. So that's why it's called sacred geometry, because it's something that's inside of us that is wired to recognize that outside of us.
Wow.
But there's 5 categories of crop circles. There's the religious and philosophical symbols. So they seem to be reminding us about ways that we've considered the mysteries of the universe, the yin yang symbol, or the tree of life and the Kabbalah, or the wings of Horus, and so on. There's animals and insects, which you can assume or speculate is connected to the fact that a lot of those species are dying out, and that might mean the end of life on planet Earth. There's astronomical symbols, and we know that our ancestors A theodolite, I don't know if you know this, a theodolite, the root word for theodolite is theodoulas. Theo is God in Greek. So a theodolite is called a servant of God. And it's to measure angles, an angle, an angel goes together, right? So our ancestors clearly, geometry is number in space, music is number in time, and astronomy is number in space and time. And our ancestors clearly spent an awful lot of time studying the heavens and how and the motion of the planets around us, and worked it out. They knew that the wobble, the precession where the North Pole wobbles and takes 26,000 years to make that little circle in the sky with the wobble of the Earth. They figured it out, right? So there's astronomy there, sort of like reminding us again, do you remember what your ancestors did? And then there's this abstract section, which is, abstract is, if you look up the dictionary definition of abstract, is about contact with other realms. It's about touching other places with our creativity or our mind or so on. And the second point I want to make to you is about the energy thing, free energy. There's a crazy guy called Charlie from Los Angeles who made a documentary, I think it was on Netflix, right, where he got this transsexual guy to say that it was, I don't know if you've ever seen this, Darcy, there's a guy who says, oh, it's energy, right? And he spent, I don't know where he got his funding, but he spent an awful lot of money trying to make a device that in the end just made a little light glow. And he had all this stuff machined. I can't remember the name of the documentary. It's on Netflix somewhere.
Oh, you're talking about the British guy, the Searle effect generator?
No, his name was Charlie. Oh, I can't remember. He kept hassling me for an interview, and I thought, no, there's something wrong with you. I'm not going to do an interview with you because I'm a bit suspicious about this documentary. And it turned out I was right.
Charlie Craggs, Charlie Martin, Charlie.
I'll have to look it up.
Charlie transsexual.
Charlie
he's not a transsexual. He's the producer, but he went to a place like Czechoslovakia, where this guy who was a transsexual said he's figured out that these are energy devices, and then he went back to the States and he had all this. He took this one crop circle design and he had all these sort of like ultra wild materials made out of very exotic metals and stuff, and tried to create an energy device. Fair play to it.
So you related it to the crop circles,
right? And it didn't work.
Sounds incredible. But
final point, Levengood, who we talked about earlier, he found out that some crop circles, because he would take the seeds from the samples and plant them, and most of them have been dehydrated. That's why you get the expulsion cavities in crop circles, because if you put a piece of crop, a wet piece of crop, a fresh piece in a microwave oven, it will heat up the moisture inside, and it looks for an escape route, and that's why it blows the nodes to let the water out, let the steam out. And so if you plant the seeds from those, they won't germinate because they've been dehydrated. But he found that if a crop circle happens at a particular time in the maturation period of the crop, that when you planted those seeds, you got up to 10 times more yield from the next crop, right?
So cool.
So he then started to apply electrical impulses to seeds before he germinated them, and he patented a new system of being able to get more yield from crops based on this electrical impulses that he applied, and he learned that from crop circles.
I'm assuming these are the seeds. So cool. This is him, by the way, boys. Yeah, I shared my screen. So I'm assuming this is the study where he looked at the seeds in Michigan there. Yeah. And then these are, the expulsion cavities. Yeah, these are his photos he used to show that only at the nodes would this steam be released from the crops that were, what he said, looked like they were exposed to plasma radiation or electromagnetic energy, at least, was present in the crops, because additionally, as steam is blowing out of these nodes, you also have energy sucking the soil up into the stem, because something's going out, something needs to come up from the soil, and that's where they found all these little spheres of metal or in concentrated amounts inside of the stalk of the plant after that. So really interesting. And I guess I'll just say one other thing, which maybe some people here haven't heard before is just the analogy of we talked about the um, that other NVIDIA crop circle that was made.
Yeah.
There's a famous case where the Asahi beer company, they made their own beer label in the middle of a crop. And this again.
Oh, you mean Asahi?
Oh yeah, Asahi.
Not
So
Asahi.
well,
That's
whatever.
a crop circle. Look at that. Look at that baby right there. Let's put that up. Now that is a crop circle.
It's a tragedy.
It's a tragedy, crop circles, but that is cool. It does make me want to go drink a beer. That's about it.
Are you guys hearing a bit of that feedback?
Yeah, some kind of audio
That was
glitch.
weird. What was that? Anyways, so yeah, the Asahi beer label. This took 2 weeks, or how long did it take?
It was 40 guys. They were professionals, surveyors and land workers and drone operators and GPS. They used a GPS technology called Mazescape, where they upload the image to a satellite and it projects down on the ground, and then a guy walks around with a pole and then he hacks in his stakes and ribbons and marks out the areas where they need to cut.
Damn.
And so it took 40 guys 7 days from sunrise to sunset to make that, using tractors and grass cutters to cut out the. And they're just letters, right? They're just
that's the closest to what the guy said in the movie about all this being so commercial.
Lee,
cool
officially you have turned into an alien. I don't know if you want to maybe disconnect your mic, replug it in.
Oh, really?
It's got this awesome effect on it, man. It sounds cool. You've just entropied into a new entity right in front of us. It was great.
Anyways, let's get into.
Is this better?
No, it's still there.
What does it sound like?
It's
what
like
happened?
a vibrational crackle.
There's some distortion and some
All right.
delay.
I'll give me a sec.
Anyways, let's go into another segment of the film, which, again, it looks like possibly M. Night had done a bit of research into the phenomenon of ufology, and that is the aliens.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first time we see the one alien, the guy that's on top of the roof. They do a little run around the property, Merrill and Reverend Hess, and they realize quite quickly that whatever that was not the Wolfington brothers or whatever. Yeah. But also, it kind of reminded me, the fact that it was on the roof. This is a really interesting sort of story in history. The Hopkinsville 1955 Little Green Men incident. And this is actually where the term or name Little Green Men came from, because 11 witnesses in Hopkinsville were, they were exposed to this crazy night where they had to shoot at these 3 little humanoid creatures that were on their roof. Apparently, they even tried. One of the creatures attacked one of them, like grabbed their head and pulled their hair from the roof. But the interesting thing is that the individuals who had this experience in Hopkinsville, they all did their illustrations with the police and discussed what they had seen. And they said they had shot them with shotgun fire quite profusely, and they called them impervious to bullets because they didn't die, whatever these things were. So this is kind of interesting in the ufology field, this event. Not a lot of people know about it. There's another illustration done. Apparently they were running on all fours at one point, these things. It's possible. And also, you can see here that First Lieutenant U.S. Air Force Charles N. Kirk, he took testimony from one of the witnesses of this event in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And this is the document of what they testified to seeing. So the U.S. Air Force themselves actually took great interest in this case. And I just find like when you see visually on the screen in signs, these beings jumping around on the roof of the property, and you later on in the film, they're breaking into the house through the upstairs, through the roof, and obviously there's that whole creepy element. And I wonder if it's possible M. Night had done his research into this case and he thought, okay, maybe I'm not going to do 3-foot tall little green men, but it's apparent that he ended up writing Green Men. As you can see, this is the scene where Mel Gibson he goes out into the field because he just wants to stop one of these crop circle hoaxers from doing their thing. And he actually sees firsthand that that's not a human leg. It's not a human foot. Super creepy. He runs back to the house. He doesn't tell them right away because he doesn't want to startle the whole family, but he realizes at this point how serious this is, that their property is being stalked by tall green men, like also they exhibit sort of a translucent ability to cloak themselves with their surroundings, right?
Yeah.
You see that later on in the film plenty of times.
Well, this is where he decides, let's turn on the TV, right? And then they immediately see the cloaking. By the way, how do I sound now? Is this better?
You sound great.
Okay.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's when you find out like about the cloaking thing, right? When they
I think when he grabbed,
part's
well,
great,
the UFOs for sure. That's when you find out they can cloak, but then now you know that the entities themselves have a bit of cloaking technology, especially whenever he picks up the sun and then his shirt kind of blends into his hand. It's kind of like a
or
chameleon
here
type of camouflage thing.
Here because
with the greenery.
At first, these little kids at the birthday party are like screaming, it's behind the plant. You can't see it until it steps out and reveals itself, and it's a tall green alien. And I just thought, maybe
played by Matthew Lillard.
But what do you think of the Hopkinsville?
He's not doing anything.
And obviously they're hostile, so that's the other thing, right?
Right.
Little green men, that sort of story from the Hopkinsville event, they were somewhat hostile. Like they actually had claws. That was in the illustration, and but these guys were unloading shotgun fire at them, trying to take them out. So do you think maybe M. Night knew about this and wrote his own version of a tall green man?
I think it's I think it's just a couple of things. So it almost even not only so the grays with the almond shaped eyes, large heads, lack of noticeable ears, stuff like that, but also it's got a little bit of a reptilian element to it as well. So it's almost 100%. Like a blending. It's almost like a blending of a few different stylizations or interpretations or observations of different entities from throughout time. So it's then a large bipedal. Well, that could be, some of the tall grays or the tall whites or the Nordics, even though it didn't physically look like it could blend into human society, physiologically it does, like in the shadows. So it's got a lot. This, in his interpretation of the entity he chooses to show us, has a lot of different elements in it from different experiencers' testimony.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then also the other added little element here is the way that they communicate. I was reading the comments on IMDb, and people were saying, "Are they crickets? Are they cricket people?" Because they seem to use that,
like the mantis beings, right? That's another element.
Yes, and it's funny that you bring that up. I'm going to bring up like this next clip here, but recently I had a chance to interview somebody who's a little bit notorious in the ufology field, a man by the name of Richard Doty. And Richard Doty was at this conference that I was at recently. He said when we were talking that basically he knows about 5 possible races that have interfaced with our planet.
What do you know about these alien races that are, have, let's say, lesser empathetic choices towards mankind?
I don't even know what I've read. I don't even know what I've need to know. When I was during my late 70s, early 80s, or into 88, I knew of there were only 5 races that the government was concerned with. Then I understand I think there's some more now. I mean, you talk to some of the experts. This one particular Air Force colonel does some speaking now. Now he's talking about 80 or 90 races. I didn't know about any of those. I don't even know about the 5 that we knew, and I don't know where that came from. I wasn't ever in the need to know how the government learned those 5 races. I just knew that there were 5 races. 2 of the races were considered hostile to us, and so that's about all I know about the races.
No pictures of the races, or where they're from, or
no, not
like us?
no. The Ebens, the first one, the Eben, that was the one that was recovered in the Roswell crash. It was about 4 foot and typical alien looking, the big eyes, the grays, yeah. And then there's
These are like supposedly Zeta Reticulans or something?
yes, right, from Zeta Reticuli. The second race was the Slavic, the Scandinavian type looking blondes, they call them. And then they had some others that were larger creatures, a little darker gray, that had a hideous face. And then they had the praying mantis ones. And again, I wasn't briefed into those programs. So I don't have anything firsthand knowledge from my. The praying mantis, I think they're the ones that are doing the abductions. And I don't know that for a fact, but I know that I've talked to abductees or contactees or experiencers, they call them now. But and they always describe. They don't always, but they sometimes describe these. There's smaller ones, and then there's another creature that's very, very ugly looking and very scary looking. It looked like a praying mantis. So, and then there's other information that I've gotten from other people that I don't want to talk about because I don't know how accurate that other information is.
Nice touch. Very cool. Yeah, Darcy, I think you're on mute, Bubba.
You're on mute. Are you? Darcy?
Sorry, guys. Yeah.
There you go.
So,
Okay.
yeah, what do you think about the fact that maybe M. Night had looked into ufology enough to realize that there's reports of many different types of entities, and
I'm sure it was not that hard for him to find that info if he did like 5 minutes of research. And yeah, like being a writer, you can't just come up with this stuff like, you thin air. I mean, yeah, it's highly possible.
I agree with you, I think, Lee, but there is an interesting, I don't know if you've ever heard of, there's a book called Authors of the Impossible, written by Jeffrey Kripow. And he talks about authors and that the act of writing actually connects you to this kind of sometimes premonitory and mystic realm. And he talks about Mark Twain, an experience that Mark Twain had, which freaked him out when he wrote about he had a vision about his brother dying and seeing him on a steamboat with roses on his chest. And 3 days later, he got a call and his brother had died, and he went there and he was laying on this table on a steamboat. But there was no roses on his chest. But when he got there and was standing over his brother's body, this woman came in and put some roses on his chest. And there's a bunch of stories in this book which is heavy. He's a serious academic, Kripal, where writers seem to have very mystical experiences.
That is incredible.
In the act of creativity.
That's great. No, I mean, it is also entirely possible that he didn't do any research, of course. I mean, you know, it's such
he had to, though. He wrote the thing himself.
Yeah, he did. He had to have done some.
But
no, I think he did.
You can just tell from subtle things inside the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, like, another really important scene that happens in this film where you understand, again, he must have done some research about UFOs. Something that's quite prevalent in what's happening in mainstream media right now with the disclosure of UFOs, you know, buzzing around our Navy ships, and we're scrambling our military Air Force to track them down, and you know, they're ping-ponging around them. Many pilots have reported in the past that they only can see the UFOs on certain cameras, certain technologies, but otherwise they're invisible to the naked eye. This has been a very long-standing UFO fact. And in the film, right here, we have a scene where Meryl explains that basically on TV, they found that a bird flew into something, a structure that was in the middle of the sky, and then descended after it got crunched against this invisible UFO and falls down to Earth. And so they've realized whatever ships are here that have brought the occupants, these aliens, they've come on technology that's invisible to the human eye. And apparently the camera too here. So I think he did have some extensive research, and you know, kind of saying, if you look at the scene where the son Morgan and Bo have tinfoil hats on, and they're reading this book that he got from the library from you know, the only book in town about UFOs. If you read the cover of the book, it is called "We Are Not Alone," and apparently Walter Sullivan in real life wrote that book, "We Are Not Alone: The Continuing Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence." I found it on Amazon, so it's very possible that even M. Night read this book, and then to poke and jab Walter Sullivan in the film, he made that a really spoofy book. And I remember
Dr. Bimbu.
Dr. Bimbu, he makes fun of the author.
Well, Mel Gibson makes fun of it.
Yeah, he says, Dr. Bimbu, and then Morgan's like, Dad, and he's like, well, yeah, you have a tone there, Dad. So it's very possible that, you know...
Great scene.
Yeah, that he did some research. This is the book. This is them.
The acting of Rory Culkin and Abigail Breslin is phenomenal.
Yeah, it's really well done.
They're
for sure.
Great actors, these kids.
Yeah. Well, now they're both adults, you know, extremely not kids.
But... No, I just saw Rory Culkin in something. But, you know, I'll be honest. I kind of want to go back to that Richard Doty for just a second. I mean...
Why?
What do you think about that? What do you think about this guy? Hold on, we don't have to...
No.
What is your opinion on this man? What do you think about what he's saying?
My interpretation from when I met him at this conference, he's a very well-spoken, intelligent, educated man on the phenomenon, and he's had a very long history with the UFO phenomenon because it was his job in the OSI, which is a special task force within the United States Air Force, the Office for Investigation, Special Intelligence. Sorry, pardon?
Oh, NSA became, that's what CIA became after that.
Right. So their whole purpose was to protect the secrets from the Air Force that were not out there in the public. So he would go to witnesses of UFOs crashing, or, you know, if they took a few photos with their camera of a UFO, a test flight apparently of a certain aircraft that is not out there in the public yet, his whole job was to convince them it was an alien spacecraft and that it was of national security. They needed those photos. So that was one thing that's a little bit creepy about him, right? He is basically a man in black. His job is to disinform and protect secrets. But he seems so kind and honest. The only thing, when he was speaking to me, like, this guy's got big gleaming eyes, and when he's talking to you, he doesn't flinch, he doesn't blink. Like, he's a trained focuser, let's say. And it almost seemed as if he was trying to see if he was convincing me of a lie sometimes when he spoke to me, or he was telling me something that was true, but he was also covering up some of that truth with something false, which is an old tactic of many different sort of spy and intelligence officers. So
yeah, he seems pretty relaxed when recounting the stuff, as if he's gone through it a lot. But, it's just like, who knows? People are capable of fooling other people, I think. Like, no one is.
I can recite the whole movie of Wayne's World right now.
I don't believe
you. You can do, no, you can do this.
You might be lying to me, and I wouldn't know.
Yeah, right.
But no, seriously, it's like no one's a human lie detector, and like unless people have proof, I don't think we'll ever know if they're for real or not. But it's interesting. Like, yeah, the fact that he talked to you and was down to talk about it, I mean, that could mean anything,
It could. I mean, he could have just been filling time in the day because at the conference there wasn't a lot of cool people, and I might have been one of the only people.
The question is, does he like signs?
I didn't ask him about signs.
Nice
I was
segue.
asking about.
Nice
Yeah,
segue,
yeah.
Lee.
I thought
No
that was the
way.
next clip.
No way.
Like, here he is talking about Mel Gibson.
What I would like to do is kind of go back and look at some different themes of the film now. We talked about the many different things in ufology that were pretty interesting. We found basically the family is one of the most important things in this film. It's like the only thing that is keeping the devil from breaking through the door is like this family working together. And a really sad moment of the film is when you start to find out that the dogs are, getting sick, getting aggressive. They do explain that later on, that this is actually a reaction from the dogs, that there's a greater predator around, and they're very, very like afraid and aggressive because they, are having a fight or flight reaction. But then tragically, Houdini, who was the one that was sick and growling, is the one who dies. And I think there's something to that, that the wife of Reverend Hess has died, and the whole family is still mourning with that. And now Houdini has died, and it's like just this added layer of tragedy that is coming at this family every moment.
It's coming at the whole town. Everyone is upset that Mel Gibson is not a preacher anymore. They're like in denial, but they still call him father. M. Night Shyamalan's character is like worried he's going to go to hell. Like Mel Gibson's faith is affecting everyone in this small town, and yeah, like the alien is the devil. You saying that they're more of demonic versions of alien, I think that's really accurate. Like, this is a movie about his relationship with God, or believing in God and not believing, and how that really is. Yeah, like that is the movie. That's why it's so great that this is a sci-fi alien film, because it's not the point of the movie, which I thought it was going into it. I mean, all the trailers were like the crop circle movie. The poster was a crop circle. It was like, oh my God, we're finally getting a movie about this. And then it's so much more. So yeah, no, I love it.
It's greatly about a man regaining his faith. And this is like the shot from the very end of the film where the family has conquered the invasion, and he realizes, through the final moments of the film, and he starts connecting all these things that his wife said before she passed away, because she had a vision to protect the family with. She said, tell Morgan to be silly and play games. It's okay. Tell Bo to look up to her brother, and he'll always be there and protect her. Tell Meryl to swing away, and tell my husband, and he's like, I'm here. Like, see, like she's trying to say, you have to see the connection. You have to see the signs that are being exhibited to you, all the signs, put together the signs. And then it clicks. He realizes, holy shit, this is all happening for a reason. Meryl, swing away, swing away. He picks up the bat off the wall, starts beating down El Grino Grincho
Chupacabra.
here, no nose boy. And, and then the water, they start realizing that the water that's
Let's
been
get into this.
Yeah,
Let's get into the water.
That is a
ordeal.
huge thing, because when this green dude is being beaten down, they start realizing, holy snap, they're vulnerable to water. And I know that that's been the greatest criticism of this film for many, many years now. This is a review after
very fair criticism.
It's a fair criticism.
What I liked about it was that it shows that something so necessary for our survival is actually the opposite of that for them. So it shows that different entities are going to have different environmental requirements. So that's what was so interesting about it to me, is that it seemed like a pretty asinine thing to be like the weapon of their doom and demise. But it turns out that when you look at that kind of stuff, just like the Arecibo crop circle, right? I mean, it talks about how they're silicone based rather than carbon based like us, right? So they have different environmental requirements. So that was kind of what a nod to this was in my mind. It was kind of a higher perspective that not a lot of people look into when they think about the phenomena and they think about entities coming here, that you'd probably want to show up in like a biohazard suit. You don't know what they have that we can't survive on, right?
Well, they did. Sorry, Brendan. They did that in Arrival, didn't they? When in Arrival, the movie Arrival, they had to change the atmosphere, and they put the hazmat suits on at first and stuff.
Yeah, and they also did that in the new Steven Spielberg remake of War of the Worlds, where the final thing that actually brings all the aliens down.
Well, that was in the original too.
That was in the original. The microorganisms, that was in the original.
Oh well, I'm a stupid.
That's just the War of the Worlds. Yeah, the cold kills them, or basically it gives them a sickness just from there. But in Signs, like they could have explained it, and maybe this would have opened more cans of worms. But like, the aliens could have been, like robotic or something that water could actually mess with, or the water could have had something in it that harmed them, like fluoride or something. Like maybe.
Here we see the very first examples of what the water does to them, and apparently it burns them like acid. It just melts.
Right, it burnt his nose off, his ear.
Right. No. No, it just burns his shoulder here when Meryl knocks him up against the Chesterfield. But here's the thing. You could interpret this, because this is a faith-based movie, right? And these things are
holy
demonic
water
in nature. Exactly.
Maybe Mel Gibson's water is all blessed because he's walking around.
Yeah, he blessed the meter when they moved in. Good call.
But water is something that saves humans. We require it for life. It's, we are 90% water, and it's just a latent fact that in faith that water is essential to the way that you do a mass at a Catholic church and so on and so forth. So it's just
good point.
Possibly.
I connected Bo's rejection. The reason those glasses of water are all around the room is because Bo wouldn't drink them because she kept saying it was polluted.
Yes, this is Lee's point. It would be like a introduction, like something in that particular, like it's Flint basically, right? So it's like contaminated water.
Yeah.
It could be contaminated, and it also would go along with I don't know. It could have been a whole separate commentary in the movie, like there's something in the water that makes people not see that aliens are coming because they're trying to weaken us. I don't know. They could have done something. It would have been too much exposition probably, but yeah, I think the fact that the water is just blessed, that it's kind of even sillier, but also works completely with the film.
With M. Night Shyamalan's, is it Shyamalama or how am I pronouncing it?
It's Shyamalan. Come on.
Yeah.
Shyamalan. Okay, it's sorry because you said Shyamalama before, Brandon, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Yeah, don't go by that.
It's called
satire.
It's
Shyamalan. M. Night.
Yeah.
So his scene where he apologizes to the Reverend, he says he's very sorry for what he had done to the family and to Reverend Hess because he made him lose his faith. Reverend Hess says, "Where are you going to go now?" He says, "I'm going to go by the lake. I'm going to stay by the water because it seems that these things are out here in the crops where there's no water. Maybe they're not interested in water." And that was kind of foreshadowing this scene here where we realize they are actually, endangered around water, that this is their weakness. But I'll go on one further point here. If you watch other M. Night Shyamalan films, water is a reoccurring theme. It is also a weakness to the main character in Unbreakable. Bruce Willis almost drowns at the end of the film when he's up against this villain, super strong villain apparently. He also, in his past, said that when he was a little boy, he almost drowned. So it might be just the fact that M. Night Shyamalan is writing into his stories his own fears of water, but his own praises, his own love of water, and realizing that this is a thing. And then Lady in the Water is not too far off. That whole film is based around water, and one of the main reasons that she appears there in this place and time on Earth is because the place where she comes from, which is a water sort of world, they don't really go too deep into it. Back in ancient times, humans were not interacting anymore with the civilizations from this water world because they become greedy and started living off of the water, destroying the oceans, destroying the land, and that's why her people don't interact anymore with humans. So a bit of an environmental thing there that M. Night wrote into Lady in the Water. But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
That is another thing I didn't think about, the fact that he loves water as a weakness.
Yep. And another real far reach on my point would be to the contaminated element of the water. During his research, he may have looked into the Aurora case, of course, where it crashed. Allegedly, the debris was thrown down into a well, and that well was contaminated, and so they walled it up. So
that's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah.
They could have done something.
I need a warp drive to connect those dots with the film. But
no, that's interesting.
It's in there. It's part of the folklore, right?
There's cool. A point also about the dogs and their reaction. On 777, the guy who was the cameraman, Winston Keach, he was scouting around for locations. He wasn't sure where he was going to do his night watch that night, and he had a dog. He had a rescue dog. It's like kind of a Irish wolfhound. This thing was. And when he got to Knapp Hill, Alton Barnes, East Field, he said the dog went crazy, was acting really energetic and wild. And that's what made him decide to set up the cameras there that night that we met up with him and filmed the crop circle appearing. And then in the morning, when the crop circle had actually appeared, he brought the dog into the crop circle, and the dog was bouncing around and just eating as much of the wheat as it could, and then violently threw up. So it got sick. So there's two elements in the film that I've actually personally experienced with the.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Hell yeah.
That's interesting. I didn't even. Wow.
Dogs puking.
So
Hell yeah.
animals do animals react do animals react quite often to crop circles in your experience?
I've never heard of it before, and not since. It was the first for me, so I can't see that M. Night had sort of picked up that, you know.
That's a pretty big theme in movies. Dogs barking at the alien. I mean, that's a thing. Yeah.
That's why
But
around.
I've witnessed lots of children, including my own. I used to drag my kids when they were little into crop circles. They would go, "No, Dad, we don't want to go," and I'd be pulling them down the tram. I was, "Come on, it's going to be lovely." And then when they got inside, they just lit up and were doing cartwheels and running around. I've seen so many kids.
It's magical, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
You know,
It's like
and
stepping into a Red Bull.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, another thing too, how they were brought down eventually is, I don't know if you guys recall it specifically, but the news report saying that it was spearheaded over in the Middle East, and they found out that 100-year-old method worked on the entities that came down, which kind of is a nod to that they've been here forever, that they've been here for a really long time, that humanity has dealt with them and have come up with a solution that's been passed down through the generations, at least in that part of the country, to defeat these entities. So
I totally missed that part.
And they didn't even say water. But the interesting part too is that now you're talking about Mesopotamia. Now you're talking about the Anunnaki. Now you're talking about all of these legends and stories that occurred in that region having to do with ufology, going back to the sky gods, going back to tons of stuff, man. Zoroastrianism, all that kind of thing is all rooted over there. And so it was a quick clip on the news that was kind of like being played on a montage or the background as it was scanning over. But that's what I remember hearing, is that they spearheaded it in the Middle East based on an ancient tradition from hundreds of years ago, which was cool.
Yeah, some primitive method of defeating them. That's what they said it was.
Yeah,
the water.
Exactly.
Throwing water balloons at them.
Which is pretty silly that they didn't know what it was. Like, well, we know that, but they couldn't tell us what they did. We just found out that they did something. Well, more on that later. I thought that was kind of silly.
It is. Now, in my mind, though, you're thinking Mesopotamia, you're thinking desert. You're not thinking an abundance of water. So they said a technique. They would have just said water on the news, because now that's helpful to everybody. They said that it was spearheaded and attacked by an ancient technique.
Interesting.
But
so maybe it's not the water. Maybe
but in my mind, I'm thinking there's no damn water around a desert. You know, I don't think Saudi Arabia. I think a plentiful amount of water.
So what you're saying is there was sand in the water. No,
yes, it was silica. Yeah, and so it's something, right? I don't know. It was just a passing thing that I just kind of thought way too much about. Clearly,
no, that's a good observation. It's all up to your interpretation, and clearly everybody interpreted it as the water killed the alien, but there could be more to it, you know?
Yeah, or something else. Like they're weak in a couple ways. I mean, clearly they can die by bat, blunt force trauma, and then also water, and then maybe an ancient technique as well. We learned that they're much less impervious than we think that they are, even though they're technologically far superior.
I wonder if anybody watches this movie and it's just like their weakness is wood.
Yeah.
Clearly the wooden bat killed them. They couldn't get through a wooden door.
Yeah.
It's just the wood.
But they're obviously like superhuman in strength. Well, superior to humans, right? Because they, can jump up and on top of your roof with one bound, and
they've got physical attributes that surpass ours. Yes, for sure.
Yeah,
but that may be due to their physiological attributes.
Yeah, and like you said before that, there's a characteristic that we see in these things that make them look like they're reptilian, right?
Mm-hmm.
And chameleons are able to blend in with their background, right?
Yep.
You can clearly see this thing has like sort of a chameleon ability, and then its eyes appear to be some kind of slit.
Mm-hmm.
So reptile eyes, it's pretty cool that they incorporated so many different aspects into the creatures of this film. But this guy that came back, that stayed at the ending, because apparently the rest of them took off, was a pissed off alien, because he had his fingers severed by Reverend Hess. And you can see that in the water weakness scene here, where this thing is missing two fingers here.
Yeah, that's the one he found in the other guy's
in the pantry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was cool because whenever he slid his hand out into the pantry, there was a quick shot. It had to have been a couple seconds, but it turned brick, like the brick on the floor. So it was mimicking the brick on the floor, like the chameleon, just like he did with the brother's shirt when he picked him up. There's a quick plaid on his hand, that's kind of morphing into what he's touching.
Oh,
Like
the
they
aliens
see
are like a different
physical-
color in every scene. I mean, he's blue, he's brown, he's green. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's
he
almost like
blends in.
physical touch kind of allows them to have that ability instead of just proximity. It seemed everything that they touch, they could turn into the color of. So
Well,
that seemed
yeah,
to be-
there was a scene like right before this. There was a shot where the when Meryl picks up the bat, the creature realizes, okay, it's go time, and it tries to shoot the kid in its arm with whatever dust comes out of its like.
But I thought it was aiming at his nose. I thought he was trying to give him
it was
something.
kind of like a
It was
spike that comes out, like an appendage that comes out
Yeah,
and vents a little bit of
it's
gas.
like a
yeah.
claw, like a little, I don't know, dick that comes out of its wrist with
A wrist dick,
with a
yeah.
little wrist
Wrist
dick.
dick.
That's
Basically
great.
a wrist dick, but
Right.
he tried to dust the kid's face with his wrist dick, and
That is not a sentence.
That
anyone
was
wants to hear.
I love it. I think that's
Oh,
been the
shit.
highlight. That's going to make
That's
the highlight
not
reel.
a well thought sentence, but go ahead.
Brilliant sentence, brother.
So
And it was that poison that they were spitting out, right? Because other people were talking about a poison that they were venting. Yeah.
yeah.
There's
That
something
was the
toxic
thing.
that they can secrete.
My mind kept vacillating, thinking, has he got a built-in asthma pump, right? Because the kid
I
had
thought he
asthma.
was healing him too. Yes, I went
Yeah.
full ET on it, just like you. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, he's healing the kid. Very
He's
nice.
going to heal him, and they're hitting him with a bat, and he's trying to save the guy.
He's just misunderstood,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. He's like these stupid friggin' Americans.
No, the
Oh,
asthma
shit.
saved him,
Fuck
right?
this planet. Yeah.
Didn't the asthma save him because
Yeah, because his lungs were
his
closed.
lungs were closed and the poison
Yeah.
couldn't get in.
That's
yeah.
right.
Well, what I was
That's right.
what I
That's
was saying is just before, like as soon as it tries to dust the kid with its poison,
Lustig.
you see a quick shot of the little girl scream, and when she screams, you're actually seeing the reflection of her face in the back of the alien, because
Yes.
the body, the skin is like somehow adapting to its surrounding constantly, like picking up images of its surrounding and trying to camouflage. It was pretty cool.
And other creatures can do that as well. Octopuses and cuttlefish can do that too.
Yeah.
So there's a whole aquamarine element to this, even though ironically they can't stand water.
Yeah, exactly. So, great film. I thought, again, the music was absolutely stunning. Very Alfred Hitchcockian in
Oh,
its,
totally.
in its the way that it slowly builds the suspense and drama.
It's like a
And-
mixture of Hitchcock psycho style music and then like, Jerry Goldsmith, Alien, Total Recall, like sci-fi stuff. But when you were talking about the beginning, the credits, I don't usually like nowadays opening title sequences, credits in the beginning of a movie is not really a thing anymore. But with this movie, just because of the music alone, you're just so hooked. Like
Yeah.
you're just in for whatever the hell is after this. Like
Absolutely, and it's
it's
2
great.
minutes. It's 2 minutes long. This
It's
opening
quick.
credits scene. Well, that's not that quick. That's pretty long. And like by today's standards, where everybody just wants to see Avengers or some really fast-paced action thing happening. Come on, give me it right now. Give me the action straight away. No
That's a
one
good
can
impression of me.
No
Yeah,
one.
I was
yeah.
about to say that's nailed it. Yeah.
That's Lee.
No one,
how I
no
am,
one
yeah.
can sit there these days for 2 minutes and just look at words with some dramatic, beautiful music, and
Yes,
that's
yeah.
essentially all that you're
Yeah, you
seeing.
need the
but your
music.
heart
to
starts
punch you in the
raising.
face.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. You need a wrist dick right in your face. So you're like watching
No,
these.
no.
You're
no.
watching these credits, and essentially you end up like coming out of the credits, and all you see is this farmhouse window looking
And then
down.
it's just downhill from there.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. No, I love
But
it.
all I'm saying is that it's so well done. Just the fact that they did music and credits, and then boom, and you're like you're dropped into this new reality, this farmland, and you have to just start to lose yourself there. What's going on here, And that's the beauty of this film. The pacing is so well done. It does drag a little bit when, kind of near the middle of the film, where after Mel sees the alien for the first time and realizes we're in trouble here, they turn on the television. He tells his brother, I'm not really a man of faith anymore, but it depends on how you look at the world. And, then he starts having more of a breakdown, and he's yelling at the kids like, eat your dinner, and all
Well,
this
hang
stuff.
on. You're skipping the part where him and his brother are watching TV, and Merrill tells him a story about his past. This is why he believes in faith. It's kind of a silly example, but basically a girl like didn't puke on him.
Yeah.
Didn't puke in his mouth.
Which is
specifically, that would have been traumatic. He's good call.
both
Found God.
Yeah, both his story and like the thing that happens in the end involves like a cup of something, which is weird, but maybe symbolism.
Don't say it, Brandon.
But
too
but
I
yeah,
wouldn't even say anything. Gary. It's Gary. That's
Well,
what you gotta watch out for. Uh-huh.
But no, it's a part where Merrill explains like why he, believes in signs, because he took his gum out. I don't know. It was a silly moment. But dude, the scene where he's eating everybody's dinner and they all cry, that's like one of the best scenes. I mean,
And to that scene,
leading
though,
leading up to that, it's a little bit, I don't know. But yeah,
you
no, I
just want to
agree
get
with
to the
you.
aliens. I get it.
No, it's not that I just want to get to the aliens. I just felt like it started dragging, and then it builds up. And yes, at that dinner scene is where it really just starts to amp up, because you realize everybody's like at their wits' end. They're
The way he
completely
stabs
stressed.
that piece of French toast, man, you
he had
feel
to go
that.
at it a couple times. Yeah.
You
It's
feel
like
the anger.
right after that, he left a voicemail on his ex-wife's phone. Anyway, so
I'm gonna give you another chance.
Yeah.
What? Have you ever heard that voicemail? Anyway,
Oh,
it's
we-
so
I was
sad.
just
That
saying.
poor
Lee and
guy
I were
divulged into. It's
Yeah,
so sad.
I
So-
love Mel Gibson. I love his acting.
Yeah.
I think he is a very intelligent man. I just think he went through addiction.
He went through some shit. Yeah,
He went
that's
through
okay.
addiction, and he had to fucking go through some shit to figure out where he's at in life. So
You can wig out on a couple people.
Well, I have a feeling that Darcy, when you finally have your meltdown, it'll be very public. So I think that you can empathize on that level.
for sure, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
be calling up my supermodel wife and unloading racist rants on her while I'm
There
drunk.
you go. Yeah, this is your future. This
Except
is
they'll
that
be about the
general-
aliens and not
in
the
the-
Jews.
and you'll be wearing that general's outfit. That'll just be your life outfit, from the movie. Another point to James Newton Howard, the guy who did the score for the film. Yeah, that's you. 5 years, man. So I looked this up. James Newton Howard, he also did a lot of other Shyamalan Ding Dongs movies. He did Unbreakable, Sixth Sense, The Village. He's done scores for like all the Christopher Nolan's Batman movies, and he also did Liar Liar. So he's very versatile.
Oh, this guy does everything. I mean, he's one of these
Provision.
composers that
Yeah.
just does everything. Yeah, like there's like 5 or 6 guys that just do every movie. He's one of them.
Yeah, I
And he
looked
did
him up.
Avatar. Yeah.
Great guy. Great music background.
No, I remember
for sure.
buying this. I own the CD of the Sign score, and I've played it in my car when it's it's a staple. It's a musical staple right there.
It's amazing music for sure.
Yeah.
It's one of the thing about this film is most of it is actually silent. You don't hear music for a lot of it, and that might, to some viewers, that might seem to drag them, because a lot of people need musical prompting to pay attention to stuff. But it seems
Nowadays there's less music and stuff overall. I think this movie reminds me of a time when like score was noticeable, because there was a theme in this movie. The did-a-dun, and like. What movie of the past 10 years has a memorable theme? I mean, I don't know. Maybe Avengers. I like the theme song of that, but like, does anyone really know? I don't know. But Star Wars not included. Obviously, that music's great.
Damn
but
Yeah.
yeah, like themes are kind of lost in films.
Yeah,
Good point.
that's true.
Musical themes.
Yeah.
It's very Danny Elfman like this theme. You know,
Well,
it's
his
a
new
signature
album is
sound.
sensational.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. He just dropped a new album that's like very Danny Elfman, because his past bunch of scores just sound like score. I mean, they sound like just James Newton Howard or anybody else, but he just did an album of his own music, and it's really good.
Very cool.
Sweet.
So what would be your rating for this film if you were to give it a, you know, number out of 10?
Who?
Are we going around the block here?
We'll
Yeah.
go around the
Gary,
block.
let's
starting
go with our
with
guest
Lee.
first. Yeah. Okay.
I'd say a 6, bordering on 6.5. Yeah, to be honest, I watched it years ago, and I think it was when I first got into the crop circles. I can't remember, when was it released?
Like 02, I think.
02, yeah.
So it would have been 5 years after I got into it, and I was reluctant, I think, in the initial stages to watch it, and then I watched it, and I know, having watched it again last night, that my whole perception of it was kind of tainted the first time around, because I was in the world where crop circle denial and everybody sort of coming up with all this stuff about, you know, it's man-made, or if there's aliens, then the aliens are coming to get us, rather than it being sort of, you know,
It's the Pritchett boys.
yeah,
No, that is a problem I have with just the abundance of like movies about aliens coming to get us. Generally that is kind of boring. Yeah. I mean,
and so I thought, you know, it's a Hollywood thing. It's another distraction from, you know, crop circles and what they're really about. I wish they wouldn't do that. And I saw it as a kind of distraction. But looking at it again now, I see that was where I was at more than where the movie was at, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Because I was in this kind of world. So when I watched it last night, I really enjoyed it. And there was loads of stuff I hadn't really. I said to Darcy, the only thing I really remember from the movie is the fingers coming under the door. That was the only thing that was stuck in my mind from the first time of watching it. And then when I watched it last night, I was struck by Mel Gibson's performance.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he played a brilliant role, and the kids just played this excellent role. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and didn't have any of those kind of feelings that I had when I watched it back in the 2000s.
Better the second time.
Definitely.
That's a good point. I got the same feelings from it as well, and I was surprised by that as well. I was telling my wife, I was like, you know, it just seems different. I didn't really care for it the first time. And then when Darcy said this is what we're doing, I was like, well, hell yeah, let's give it another go. And I did. I got different themes from it. And now looking at the phenomena, and especially having you guys on to talk about crop circles, it was really cool. I was like, okay, yeah, I love it. And the little details about it, I was able to kind of enjoy a little bit more.
Yeah, me too.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
What was probably the one thing you disliked the most about the film? Well, Gary, you already said yours. Brandon, would you have a little negative there?
Not negative, just, because I'm not a filmmaker. I don't have a right to tell anybody what they should do with their movie. But if it's me, I'm like Lee. I'm an action guy. Like, show me some shit, man. Like, shoot it or something, or getting like a real hand-to-hand combat battle with this thing or something like that. More ships, more stuff like that. Again, I'm a razzmatazz kind of guy.
Wait, you said you're like me and I like this stuff? Is that what you said?
Jokingly, because earlier we were talking about Avengers. We need the fight scenes. It was a callback from a comment.
No, I mean I respect that though. So you would have liked a more like more
ridiculous
than just him whacking an alien with a bat. Like you want to see some actual like laser firing or
like something dope, something like.
Well, you should watch Tomorrow War. I think
I just saw it actually. It was great.
Oh,
it was great.
yeah?
Yeah. Very interesting. Very cool.
Is that out now on Amazon?
Yeah, we should do that one, man. That's a fascinating movie.
We could do that. We could do a whole invasion series, because really this film is one of many invasion films, that are out there. So,
this one I love because it's invasion and time travel, which is great.
Well, cool. Signs is probably the most failed invasion ever depicted on film. Like,
that's fair. Yeah.
These aliens pathetically tried to invade. I mean, every other movie I've seen, they were pretty much all more successful than that. I mean, I've seen the White House get blown up. We've seen the Bayonne Bridge get destroyed. So what did they do in Signs? I mean, they did
They
no
broke
damage.
some
Well,
glass, but that
It's a
was more
bad
like
day.
the guy, not the alien.
They killed some crops. That's
Yeah.
I saw. Is it called Extinction recently? Is there one where?
Oh yeah, yep, that's one
And
on Netflix.
Yeah, and it has a twist because you think the aliens
Right.
are invading, but it turns out it's the humans that are
Right.
invading.
Yeah, that's on Netflix, right?
Boy,
yeah.
that
Yeah.
was
Crazy.
fascinating.
That was
yeah.
kind of dumb the way they did it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, the humans wear these like alien suits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, if
Yeah.
maybe the robots wouldn't be running away if they saw like humans coming after them. They'd be like, oh, wait a sec,
Hang on.
humans are dicks.
Yeah, they're real squishy. That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kill them.
No,
super
overall, I think I prefer the more like abyss type movies where
Yeah,
aliens
hell yeah.
warn us that we're destroying the Earth. Like, that
James
to me,
Cameron,
that's
yeah.
more in line with what
I
I've
would
read
agree
in
with
ufology. You don't hear a whole lot of stories of aliens killing people. Like, where are those stories anywhere?
Yeah, they just snatch them up, take them off, so we don't see it. We see some dead cows.
I
And
guess,
stuff,
yeah.
but they probably would just be gone, right? They just get abducted and taken
I,
off.
I guess you're right.
They run the.
We
they
have
run the
to
No
military.
do.
eyewitnesses.
We have to do an episode and talk about I think, a very unsung hero in invasion films called Captive State. I don't know if you guys have seen Captive
No.
State. John
Is this the one with
Goodman.
John okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's very creepy. It's very like, this is one where the aliens won, you know, and basically the whole human race are subjected to basically labor and living in sort of a concentration camp sort of life, and only certain humans are like living a higher lifestyle, and they're, politicians that are allowed to interact with the aliens. It's really cool. But no one, I haven't seen a lot of people do reviews on it and stuff, and I feel like
We should do that.
yeah, we should do it sometime. It's
Yeah.
a really cool film.
It's kind of like Gray Dawn, instead of Red Dawn, they're not communists taking over and putting people in a competition. It's just the grays, right? That for sure. I think also the movie, another good unsung hero as far as invasion movies goes, Evolution, man, with David Duchovny.
That is
Hilarious.
a
Great
really funny
movie.
one.
Yeah,
I think
the meteor
it's
comes
a
down,
good
changes
place
its
to
environment. That's another, way that it did that in that cave.
That's
shampoo
that,
saves them.
That idea,
Yeah.
yeah, selenium.
Great metaphor.
The idea,
That's right. Dandruff.
the idea of that film is like a horror spin on panspermia, which is like a real scientific theory
Yeah.
that like even our planet was brought life by an asteroid hitting it, and when it hit the ocean, that created certain building blocks of life that asteroid had carried with it. And maybe we're not indigenous to Earth, we just came on an asteroid and evolved that way. That's the panspermic theory.
It's got panspermia and terraforming in it because it starts to create its own environment that's more conducive for itself. So it's got the
Yeah.
two elements. It's perfect.
And once the aliens start moving outside too far away from the environment, they start
die.
dying. Yeah,
Yes.
which is like cool.
It's
Yeah.
a cool theme. Yeah, good call.
Yeah, so I think that's pretty good. I think we're done here, but I wanted to thank again Gary. Thank you for coming on with us, man. It's a pleasure speaking with you about crop circles. Thank you, Lee, for coming on,
Thank
talking
you
about
guys.
one of your favorite films.
Whatever it is I
Hopefully-
talked about. Yeah.
Hopefully you can come back. We're probably going to do this again sometime in the future. Brandon, you're a gem. You're a total gem.
I get by.
You know enough about ufology to get way by. You're definitely driving down the highway ahead of everybody else. So
For a guy
I appreciate that.
in ufology, he looks like he's doing pretty well. Both of you are, all of you actually. You're all in a house. Next time I see you guys, hopefully I won't be as pale. But
well, this
I'm
this
working
is not
on
from ufology. This is from my OnlyFans. That's where that money comes from.
okay, yeah, you're all
People
doing very
give you,
well.
People give you money if you show them your butthole. It's pretty cool.
It's crazy.
Brandon,
It's crazy.
you had so much dignity built up. It all just
We've broken.
I don't know.
That's what I like to do, right? Set that. And then
You just
tumble
bent it like a bent crop, but that's
or
okay.
like me on Tuesdays on OnlyFans. So
Yeah.
I gotta look into this OnlyFans. Dude.
Gotta make money
You-
somehow.
UFOs meets
people
whatever.
are gonna look
I'm
this up.
intrigued.
That's a damn joke. All right, people are gonna look this up. Brandon Thomas, OnlyFans.
So-
I mean, I still don't know what that site is, but
If people
show their
peop-
buttholes and you get money for it.
if people show their
Brandon.
buttholes, great.
It's true.
If people want to find out more about what you do, Gary, why don't you start? Tell our viewers some places where they can check out some of your work.
I got a YouTube channel and a Facebook page both called Against the Grain. So we post regularly on there. We've had a fantastic crop circle right by the Avebury Stone Circle yesterday. It's the third today, right? Yeah, yesterday. It's awesome. It's really the lay of the crop, and it's weaved, and it's logarithmic spirals inside a hexagon. It's pretty awesome. So this is the time when I wish I was back in the UK, so I could have headed it. That was my back garden. I could have just popped down there, and the farmer's letting people in. He said that farmer's usually over the years, so that farmer's been quite vicious to people. And I'm so surprised he's put a donation thing out today for a charity and said, yeah, okay, if you're going to come in, donate some money to charity and let people in. So
That's
so cool.
cool.
To do that. Yeah, I
Wow.
love that they do that.
Brandon, where can people find you and some of your podcasts?
Yeah, so I do a show called Expanding Reality. You can find it anywhere podcasts are served. We've got a YouTube video element of it as well, and then just expandingrealitypodcast.com. You guys should first, if you're new to the show, check out my conversation with Gary and Darcy on Crop Circles called Crop Circle Realities. I forget the number of it. It's in there somewhere. It's a great episode. You guys are wonderful.
And Lee, you've got a really cool YouTube. I think people
got a
would
channel.
love to see your stuff. Yeah.
Just youtube.com/Lee Lustig, my name. I've been working on a really cool documentary that I've been editing for like a year and a half that's coming out really soon. Hopefully I can reveal it soon, but stay tuned for that. It's pretty scientific, but not in this way. More about like climate change, global warming stuff, but it's definitely going to be good, and more on that later is all I can say. But the YouTube channel, way less dignity and seriousness than these guys. So if you want
Brandon,
some funny game reviews or something light, yeah, go ahead and check out my stuff.
You have to check out Lee Lustig's game reviews. I have to say, bar none, the funniest game reviews I've ever seen in my life.
That's really nice of you. But I don't know.
Lee is a comic. He writes. He knows how to write comedy. And if you guys go check out his stuff on YouTube before you go to bed, I promise you'll be laughing at some of the stuff he does. It's really well done.
Until you're bored. But you might get a couple minutes of laughter in there.
I'll still check it out. My 16-year-old nephew is staying the summer with us on the ranch here and helping out and just kind of doing this in between school. And he is a huge gamer. I'm not so much into the games.
I relate so much to 16-year-olds. I mean,
I
totally get why.
Yeah, and I'm into comedy, so that's perfect. He's more into. So it's got what I was trying to say is it's got something for all of us. So we'll all be able to sit down and enjoy it. So we will
might find something you like there. I appreciate it.
It's very PG too, so you'll get something out of it.
All right.
So
that sounds great.
Oh, and if people want to check out some of my documentaries, some of them I've worked on with Lee as well. Go to occultjourneys.com. You can click on the trailer there. You can click on the poster. It'll take you through to a site to watch the film. Most of my films are available on Amazon Prime, Tubi TV to stream, so go ahead, find me on IMDb, drop me a line on Facebook or Instagram. I'm just Darcy Weir. So that's the show for today. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and we'll be coming back with another film and another sort of reality take later on. Thanks, guys.
We're doing Free Willy next, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's only fair.
That's all
and
I've
then
been watching.
The Arrival with Charlie Sheen.
Yeah.
Free the willy on your wrist. Your wrist.
All right.